I survived the Wii U era. Hey everyone, it's a part-time video gamer, and man, when you think about the Wii U, a lot of feelings come to mind. I believe the Wii U is a much loved but much misunderstood console. Even to some degree, it was misunderstood by Nintendo, just in their marketing and their rollout and stuff. But I always come back to the Wii U because it's a special place in time. It's a special moment in time. And I said like I survived the Wii U era, but all of my life growing up, I have been a very big Nintendo fan. I love the games that they create. I think they're very innovative, really cool stuff that they make. They have a lot of other issues that might be the subject of different videos, but I've always appreciated their creativity and their gameplay in their games. And following them for so long, it was always exciting to see the next thing that Nintendo put out and the next system and the next big game. You have those milestone games when you think of Nintendo, like Ocarina of Time. And, if you're going further back, you think Link to the Past and jumping back to GameCube, you have these heavy hitters like Metroid Prime, Luigi's Mansion, Mario Sunshine, like so many good ones. They did something different when it came to the Wii, and it shocked a lot of us. And Nintendo was able to tap into the general market. It was a very different thing. And so a lot of us were sitting and wait to see like what is Nintendo going to do next. And the Wii U had a lot of weight on its shoulders. It had a big task following in the footsteps of its older brother, and it was a big swing and a miss. There's no way to put it lightly. The Wii U was a very big swing. I think even Nintendo didn't fully understand how to communicate the idea of the Wii U. So many people misunderstood the Wii U. I didn't even know really what happened when the console came out. Now, a little bit of extra context for this. I was in my last couple years of college, and it was the generation of the PS3, the 360, and the Wii that probably the back end of that generation, I was probably the most disconnected I had been from video games ever. And some of this was just due to the nature of having those higher level college courses and the demand of doing that and working, just a lot of other stuff. I couldn't game as much as I wanted to. There's a lot of those cornerstone video game experiences for each of those consoles. I think things like, the later Mass Effect games, the later BioShock games, like Last of Us on PS3, some of the later Wii releases like Galaxy 2 and Skyward Sword. I did get to play Skyward Sword, but there's a lot of those games that I just missed out on. I wasn't able to play them. I wasn't able to get my hands on them. I didn't have enough time. I would still follow gaming news and gaming culture as much as I could, following sites like IGN and others, like back when they actually did their job. But that's a whole different video. I remember even myself being confused about what the Wii U was. And I didn't even get a Wii U at launch because I was, like I said, I was so disconnected from the gaming industry. And in my mind, when I heard Nintendo talking about the Wii U and whatever, I honestly, I'm not joking. I at first thought it was like an accessory. I was like, what is this? Is this like a refresh of like the Wii? I remember I was able to get my hands on the Wii U the late part of 2013. And at that point, it had been fairly clear that the Wii U was not off to a great start, to put it lightly. And I think my misunderstanding and, even picking up the console so late into its relatively short life cycle, which was about 5 years, is kind of illustrative of the picture. Nintendo misunderstood how to communicate the idea of the console to a lot of people. I think a lot of third-party developers misunderstood what the Wii U was. A lot of them are getting the dev kits for the console, and they're saying like, okay, so it's a little bit more powerful than the Wii. It's HD, but it's not as powerful technically as the PS3 or the 360, like, or maybe it's like just as powerful as them or like slightly a little bit above that. So, but the main thing is like there is a big touchpad controller thing going on. Like, how do we make games for that? A lot of developers at the time, and we see it even more today, we're just more starting to shift towards how can we capitalize on our games. If we make it, on this system and it can run on this, it can be cross-gen, cross-platform. That's what they're caring about. They didn't want a console like the Wii U where they had to take time to dedicate how do we make our game work with this gamepad in this ecosystem. They wanted the fastest transference of their game to other platforms so they could make money. And Nintendo consoles don't really work like that. You gotta take time, you gotta massage it, you gotta figure out what really makes it tick. And a lot of third-party developers just didn't do that. Like, I remember the launch lineup of the Wii U was pretty dire, just thinking off the top of my head, it was like New Super Mario Brothers U. You had a couple things like Ubisoft did Zombie U, which is actually a really good game and like utilized the gamepad really well. You had Nintendo Land. There wasn't a lot of heavy hitters, honestly, and I think the whole concept of the gamepad was probably the biggest Achilles heel for the Wii U, why it was misunderstood. Like I mentioned before, developers didn't know how to wrap their heads around this whole idea of the gamepad. And so because of that, we got a lot of terrible ports. Nintendo probably had some of the best games that utilized the gamepad, but you could even argue a lot of those games weren't fully designed around the gamepad because probably 80% of the best games on the Wii U got ported to the Switch. Games like Twilight Princess, Wind Waker that use the gamepad a lot, which we still haven't gotten those on Switch, so maybe we're going to get them on the Switch too, but they help with like inventory and menu stuff. That was really great. I mentioned earlier a game like Zombie U made a really good use of the gamepad because the game would be happening in real time and you'd have to do inventory on your gamepad and it kind of heightened the tension of different things. There's games like Xenoblade Chronicles X, which made a really good use of it too, where it's like it worked as your inventory system. It was a very integral map and like how you navigated the world. So there was things that the dual screen was very beneficial, but there weren't a ton of games built around it. I think the concept of the gamepad really is unique. There's a lot of stuff that Nintendo was trying to bring from the 3DS and the DS experience that they had to the home console. And because of that misunderstanding, the Wii U just didn't get a lot of third-party support. The best third-party support they got were games that were like 2 or 3 years old at that point. And they got, sometimes decent ports. A lot of the times they got terrible ports over to the console. And so you're like, well, first of all, third parties don't want to support it. The ones that do kind of give us a terrible kind of like half-aid attempt at a port. And so of course no one's going to play like whatever the Call of Duty they released on Wii U because I can go play on PS3 or 360. It's going to be way better. And then you had the inevitable when the PS4 and the Xbox One came out and obviously eclipsed the power of the Wii U. And so again, just there was this weird like, what is the novelty, what is the draw of the Wii U? I think the biggest misunderstanding game-wise of Nintendo trying to justify this console has to be Star Fox Zero. And you bring up Star Fox Zero and people start looking at you funny, but Star Fox Zero is a game, I should do a whole different video about that, but Star Fox Zero is a very interesting game for so many reasons, but the biggest thing is why the choice of the control scheme was made for that game, or just how it was implemented. Because I personally don't hate the control scheme. of Star Fox Zero, but I will also admit that it is not easy. It is difficult to pick up, it's difficult to understand. There's parts of the game where you just can't help but feel like this would be easier if I could either fully be in like first person view on the gamepad, or if I could be in third person view like I'm seeing on the screen. And so having to kind of like marry those two, it just never fully gelled. And I think it's the great beginnings of a good idea, but it didn't get fully baked. And like I said, there's a lot of deeper ground that you can cover with Star Fox Zero, but I think that kind of was the height, the epitome of people just really not understanding this console. And even Nintendo at that point having this be their really big push and saying like, here is the game that is going to justify the gamepad, and kind of came out and like hit the floor with a thud. Like people were just like, oh, okay, so it's like Star Fox 64 and the controls are confusing. And they're even confusing in a way that was different than the Wii, because when the Wii came out, we were all like, man, what's going on with like motion controls and whatever? But then like you could get it and it would make sense. And for a lot of the games that were more for serious players, you had some motion control option, but then you also had an option to use a GameCube controller, or you could use the nunchuck, and the joystick on that, like still in a more traditional fashion than just the Wiimote. And that wasn't the case with Star Fox Zero. So it's just like, this is baffling. It's baffling. It was hard to be a Nintendo fan. The Wii U was just like a constant drought. If you're a Wii U owner, you learn to take the good times and really try to savor them, because there was long stretches of nothing. I can't really recall what other games I played. Like, I'd have to look back at my games I got here. I can give you the chronology. I got Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, Xenoblade Chronicles X, Mario 3D World, which is a fantastic game. Arkham City, Assassin's Creed Black Flag, Splatoon. Splatoon came out on the Wii U. It launched a now very strong IP for Nintendo. So, that's a big testament to the Wii U. But as you can see, just even me struggling to name off the games, it was very feast or famine with the Wii U. And it was hard. It was hard to hold on to hope to be a Nintendo fan. And, we'd been teased what would come to be Breath of the Wild. All the different code names and leaks were calling it as like Zelda U, Zelda Wii U, or whatever. And we wouldn't get that until literally the closing, like the dying breath of the Wii U, as the Switch was already like launching into popularity in 2017. I even remember being a Nintendo fan during this Wii U era, and E3, oh man, E3, we don't have it anymore, but E3 was a wild time when people would come and bring their games and their heavy hitters, and you would always kind of go into E3 being like, man, this company's really got to like pull something out of the hat, because if not, it's going to be a dire time. And every year with the Wii U, E3 was a dire time. So many Nintendo fans would roll in there and be like, okay, Nintendo, you gotta do something. You gotta have something big up your sleeve. You gotta do something. And like I said, like they teased us with things like Zelda, what would be Breath of the Wild, but we never got that until the end. They would give us some stuff like, hey, we got like Bayonetta 2 as an exclusive, which was great. I love Bayonetta. It's a really good game, but that's like one game in a year. We got this Star Fox game coming, and then finally when they had that E3 where they literally had nothing else to lean on, and it was like, hey, we're gonna do like this Muppets thing with the Star Fox characters, and here's Star Fox Zero, and like it was fun and stuff, but that was like literally the only thing they had, and it was just so painful. It was so hard to be a Nintendo fan during that time. You just feel like you're so embarrassed for Nintendo, but you just feel painful because you're like, why is this happening? Man, I will say one thing in the Wii U era is a lot of indie developers got love from Nintendo, because literally like third parties weren't doing anything, so Nintendo was like, hey, we gotta lean into something. And so there's actually a lot of really good third party games that got developed specifically for the Wii U, or they came out like exclusively on the Wii U. You know, a couple that come to my mind are Affordable Space Adventures. Say that 5 times fast. Affordable Space Adventures. And it was this cool indie game where you were like in the ship and you're exploring these different areas, but it was like so much. It was like a co-op game, but you had to use the gamepad to do these certain things, and you have somebody else using like a Wiimote or another controller, and you're all working together in this very collaborative game, and it was super, super interesting. Like I said, these were the type of games Nintendo needed to make to justify the gamepad. But you had stuff like that. You had stuff like Axiom Verge, which, you know, is this great Metroidvania that was widely developed by one guy, and then like the level of quality it had for an indie game is great. And you know, he went on to make a sequel, and you can pick up all this stuff on the Switch or Steam, wherever you want to play stuff. But yeah, the indie scene was really wild in the Wii U era. I mean, I would say that's honestly where I started getting into indie games, because I'd played a few before then, but you know, I've never really been like a huge PC gamer guy. But you know, Wii U era, you got nothing else to play, so it's like those indies are saving the day. They're saving the day, baby. Living through the Wii U era, you come to be resilient as a Nintendo fan, as a gaming fan in general. And in these hard times that we find ourselves in the video game industry, with layoffs and all these other controversies and delayed games and huge budgets and all this stuff, I think a lot of the resilience that I learned being a Wii U fan is really coming into play right now. You know, that and a backlog of stuff I actually want to play. But yeah, it just felt fitting, you know, on the year now, the eve of the Switch 2's imminent reveal and release. You know, even me recording this video today, there's more leaks and rumors about the Switch 2 possibly even being revealed this week. I don't know. We'll see. Time will tell, but it felt fitting to take a moment to reflect on the Wii U, a console that I generally love and is very misunderstood, and in a lot of ways was ahead of its time. Very similar to the Dreamcast. Introduced a lot of things that, you know, it paved the way, like I said earlier. It paved the way so the Switch could run. So Wii U, thank you for all that you've done. You were so misunderstood. We hardly knew ye. But Super Mario 3D World is legitimately one of the best Mario games I think ever made. You gotta go play it.